Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Rochelle, and this is Living the RV Dream with Time Traveler 2. I'd like to welcome you to my channel. I'm starting a series of videos that will help those of you interested in buying an RV to know what to do and what to look for so that you can save yourself a lot of grief and save yourself a lot of money. Today's topic is an important one. Can you afford to buy an RV? Now, that depends on what you buy and what your financial situation is and what you want to do with an RV. You don't have to have a big, expensive luxury motorhome. You can make do with a travel trailer, a camper. They're all considered recreational vehicles, but they all have different uses, and you have to decide what you're going to use yours for. You also have to be realistic about the costs that are involved in owning even the smallest recreational vehicle, because to be honest with you, there is no such thing as a cheap RV. You may think the one you see sitting on a consignment lot for $5,000 or $6,000 is a great deal. It may look great, may have some nice amenities inside, and so forth, but do you really know what it's going to cost? Well, I'm going to give you some ideas about that. When you buy an RV, when you go to a lot where they have them for sale or a dealership, they have a price on the window. That's not the price you're going to pay. You're going to pay less. How much you're going to pay is going to depend on your ability to negotiate and to understand values. This is why before you ever walk on a lot, you ought to go to the NADA RV site and look up some figures on different RVs, years, models, and so forth, and sizes, to get some idea of what their market value is. That's not the end of it, though. You really have to investigate any RV you're looking at. You do not want to buy one sight unseen, no matter how good it looks in the pictures, because frankly, just about any RV can be made to look fantastic in photographs. So, you've got your figures, then your next step is to start looking. Before you even get to that point, though, you have to figure out what it is you want, because what you want and what you can afford are very likely going to be two different things. You may want a big fancy motorhome, but you may not have a couple $100,000 to sink into it, and you may not even qualify at the bank to get that. And that may be a good thing, because if you're not qualifying, that means you can't afford it. So you're going to have to lower your sights a little bit. On the other hand, if you're buried in money and you want to buy something like that, go for it. You know, whatever you want to do. My suggestion to beginners is always to start small, and you can trade up as you go. It's only when you've actually traveled in a recreational vehicle of any kind that you will know whether this is something that will work for you. And that's unfortunate, because it causes a lot of people to do a lot of trading, and trading is expensive. So you know what you want, you know the price range, you think you can afford it. So you go in and you look around and you find one you think you like. You look at it, you check it out, it looks good, you don't see any leaks, you don't smell anything bad, the tires look good, and so forth. So you decide to make a deal. So let's say you want to spend $20,000, and that's the price range this item is. Let's say the travel trailer, let's say it's $20,000. So you go in to make the deal, and before long you find out that that's just the beginning of your costs. You're going to have dealer prep fees, you're going to have sales tax, which is going to add right away another 6% or 7%, depending on the state you live in. Now, Montana has no sales tax. So if you buy it in Montana, then you won't have to pay that fee. However, If you buy it in Montana but you live in Pennsylvania, you're going to have a problem because they're not only going to charge you a sales tax, they're going to charge you for bringing an outside vehicle into the state. So be careful about that. It sounds good, but it's not such a good deal. So you have your sales tax. You have your dealer prep fees, which means washing it and detailing it and making it all nice for you and so forth. You have to register it, of course, with the state. Then you're going to need a place to keep it. That's something you should think about before you even buy the RV, because if you think you're going to park it in your front yard, you may be very disappointed because there are zoning laws in all cities that keep people from putting things like boats and RVs on their property. You're thinking, this isn't fair. I own the property. I should be able to put on it what I want. You can't always do that. If you can do it, that's great, because that means you're not going to have to pay anything to store it. But if you can't do it, you're going to have to find a storage facility in your town, and storage is not cheap. Where I live, you'll pay anywhere between $55 and $250 a month to store your unit, depending on what you ask for with it. So you've got your sales price, you've got your registration and all that stuff, your sales tax. Now you've got your storage fee. That's not the end of it. The next thing is taking care of it. You've got to detail it every so often. These things get dirty very quickly. Maybe you can do that yourself. Maybe you cannot. If you cannot, you're going to have to hire somebody to come over to where you have it stored and wash it and wax it and maybe vacuum the interior and clean the upholstery and wipe down the counters and so forth. They charge a lot of money for that. We pay approximately $200 twice a year to do just the outside of our small motorhome. It's a 34.5-foot Holiday Rambler. But that gives you some idea of the cost. They charge by the foot. Different people charge different amounts. You need to negotiate a deal, but that's an amount you're either going to have to pay or you're going to have to do the work yourself. And let me tell you, doing that work is not easy. So there are going to be some other costs in addition to the ones that I've already mentioned. For example, you're probably going to have to borrow the money to buy the RV. So you're going to have to pay interest on that. At 5%, interest on a $20,000 loan is going to be somewhere around $100 a year, which isn't too bad because it's relatively low amount. That depends on the number of years you take it for, how much you borrow, whether you put a down payment, and so forth. We've already discussed detailing. If you do it right and you have to pay for it, that's $400 a year. And there's some other things also, in addition to storage, which will come to about $720. You're going to have to insure your coach, and that's going to cost you, on a $20,000 coach, around $350 a year, more or less. You'll have to check all these figures. These are ballpark figures. Then there's the issue of depreciation. This is going to be one of your biggest expenses, and you're not going to see this until it comes time for you to sell your coach. But on a $20,000 unit, the second you drive off the lot, you're going to lose 20% of its value, which means you're going to lose $4,000 in value. If you went to sell it the next day, you would have to sell it for at least $4,000 less than you paid for it. That is why being very careful about buying is important. You don't want to have to sell an RV quickly for this reason, because you'll just lose too much money on it. So now you've got your RV, you've got it insured, you've got a place to store it and all that. Now you want to take a trip. Well, let's say you go on a trip once a year that's about 3,000 miles. You're going to be very surprised to see the gas and the mileage you're going to get on your RV. This is going to be nothing like your car. Gas and diesel at $3 a gallon On a gas engine RV, you'll get 8 to 10 miles per gallon. You'll get a little bit more on a diesel. But if you want 3,000 miles at 10 miles per gallon, let's say, let's give you the higher number, you'll use 300 gallons of gas, or you'll spend $900 just on your diesel fuel or your gasoline, depending on how far you drive and what your particular RV gets for mileage. Then there's going to be the issue of camping. Camping is not cheap. The average right now is around $40 a night. So if you go for 1 month, it's going to cost you, at that rate, it's going to cost you $1,200 to camp. So your basic trip is going to cost you $2,100. And this is after all the other expenses that you paid. And most of those costs are going to be ongoing. It's not going to be a one-time thing. So that $20,000 that you paid for that is only going to be part of what you're actually going to be paying to keep your RV. And those expenses are not going to go down. And on top of that, you're going to have maintenance and you're going to have repair. We just put tires on our RV about 2 years ago. That was $2,500. We also carpeted the front part of the RV in the bedroom. That was another, I think, $2,500. Now, that's not something you have to do every day, but if you keep an RV for a while, there are going to be things you're going to have to do. Things get old, they get dirty, they get torn, they get damaged and whatnot. And then you have your mechanical things. There are plumbing problems, furniture, your furniture can get damaged, your lighting, your electricity. We had a generator die on us on a trip out west a couple years ago. And it was 2 days or 3 days worth of repairs, and it was, fortunately, we were able to negotiate our way out of that one. That one only cost us about $100, but it could have been much more because they were stretching the hours out, and my husband was a good enough mechanic to know what they were doing, and so he didn't permit it. We worked out a deal with them. But there are just all kinds of RVs constantly need to be repaired. There's always something breaking. It's just the nature of the beast. So, if I haven't scared you to death yet with these figures, there's one more thing. Understand that when you go to sell your RV, whenever that is, it could be 10 years down the road, it could be a year from now, you're going to lose a lot of money. I have only had one RV in all the years that I've been doing this where I made any money. And that surprised me. I didn't think that would happen. So be prepared, because depreciation just, eats the value away. It's not, RVing is not as simple as people think it is. It's not as cheap as people think it is. However, the good news is that there are many ways that you can balance out the costs that I've mentioned here. For example, with detailing, you can detail your own RV. If you're strong enough and healthy enough and want to do it, you can detail your RV for the cost of some soap and water, basically, and save yourself $400 a year. You can negotiate prices on storage, and pay less than the amounts that I've mentioned here. All of those things can be dealt with, and those are all the things I'm going to be talking about as I go through this series that will teach you what you can do with RVing, how much it's going to cost you, and what you can do to mitigate the costs. We do that a lot. We don't pay all of that money for our RVs, and it works pretty well for us, but it's up to you. It's up to you to decide what you pay, what you're going to buy, what you're going to do with it. You've got to do your homework, and you've got to be realistic. Don't think that a $6,000 or $10,000 RV is going to be a good deal. It may be, but it probably won't be. So keep that in mind. Press the subscribe button before you walk away, and I'll see you in the next episode. If you have listened to all of this and you are still interested in finding out whether you can afford an RV, I do have some good news for you before I let you go. And that is that the things that I've mentioned to you all are relative. They can be, those costs can be mitigated in many instances. It all depends on what you decide to do. For example, if you insist on having a large diesel pusher motorhome, yeah, you're going to pay more for that, especially if it's new. But you might be able to mitigate that cost by buying one that's maybe 10 years old. It will cost less, there will be less depreciation, so forth and so on. And if you choose well, maybe all the repairs have already been made and you won't have to pay for those either. If you are interested, follow along with this series and you'll get the information that you need. And if I miss anything, all you have to do is post a question and I will be happy to answer, especially if you are someone who really is looking for an RV right now and you are not sure about what you're doing. Okay, there you have it.